Strategic thinking is not only a skill for generals, leaders, or philosophers. It is a mindset that determines the quality of your decisions and the course of your life. The Stoics understood that life is a continuous sequence of challenges, each requiring a clear mind, disciplined planning, and precise execution. Without a framework for decision-making, the mind becomes reactive, easily swayed by emotions, impulses, or the pressures of the moment. Strategic thinking allows you to move with intention instead of drifting aimlessly. To think strategically is to combine reason with foresight. It means anticipating potential outcomes, preparing for obstacles, and acting from a position of clarity rather than urgency. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus taught that control begins with perception and judgment. By mastering the way you interpret situations, you lay the foundation for sound strategy. This video will explore 10 chapters of Stoic-based principles for cultivating strategic thinking. The aim is to give you a practical structure to apply these lessons daily, whether in personal life, professional pursuits, or moments of crisis. Let's begin. Chapter 1. Defining strategic thinking through Stoic principles. Strategic thinking in the Stoic sense is the disciplined alignment of actions with values and long-term aims. It is a method for deciding where to place attention, how to direct effort, and what to decline. It asks a simple sequence: clarify the purpose, identify the principles involved, and choose the next action that strengthens character and advances the mission. Choices are measured against virtue, wisdom, justice, courage, and temperance, so that progress is real, not cosmetic. The Stoics viewed life as a stream of decisions, each with a moral direction. A decision either consolidates who you intend to become or weakens that intention. Strategy, in this frame, is less about arranging external pieces and more about governing the faculty of choice. The self becomes the primary arena where planning, restraint, and execution are practiced. Marcus Aurelius wrote that the mind adapts and shapes itself to what it consistently attends to. This underscores the importance of directing attention with intention and discipline. Training the mind for strategic thinking means creating deliberate systems that guide focus toward what matters most. This can be done by establishing cues in your daily environment that remind you of your purpose, asking targeted questions to frame decisions, and setting pre-commitments that lock in high-value actions before distractions appear. Questions such as, what principle is at stake? What outcome matters today? And what action protects my integrity? Act as mental anchors that prevent drift. These questions keep your attention oriented toward your core values and objectives, even in uncertain or high-pressure conditions. Strategic thinking starts with the Stoic dichotomy of control. Clearly separate what you can influence from what you cannot. List controllable levers such as your judgment, your intentions, your level of effort, your choice of words, and the thoroughness of your preparation. Identify contingencies that lie outside your control, including the opinions of others, the final outcome of an effort, the exact timing of results, and the role of chance. Directing energy toward controllable levers ensures that your decisions and actions are rooted in areas where you can produce real change. To reinforce this focus, design your physical and mental environment to support these levers. Maintain uncluttered workspaces to minimize friction, create structured start-of-day rituals to establish momentum, develop decision checklists to ensure thorough evaluation, and impose constraints that reduce the number of low-value choices available. These measures allow you to conserve energy for essential tasks and maintain steady execution rather than being drawn into speculation. By applying this structure, you create a disciplined pattern that reinforces clarity before every significant action. The process begins with defining your objective in precise, unambiguous terms so you can measure progress against a clear standard. You identify the guiding principle you intend to uphold, ensuring that each decision supports your values and long-term direction. You determine the smallest and most effective step that will move you forward without unnecessary complexity, which keeps momentum steady and manageable. You then evaluate the potential risks of acting without complete information, weighing the costs of delay against the costs of proceeding with partial certainty. The sequence is deliberate and methodical. You start by gathering the most relevant and verifiable facts, filtering out irrelevant noise that can distort judgment. You set a reasonable but firm time limit for decision-making to prevent indecision from draining focus and energy. Once the deadline is reached, you commit to a choice with full awareness of its potential consequences, then execute without hesitation. Action is followed by a structured review in which you examine the decision's context and results. This review involves identifying what was within your control and how effectively you managed it, noting what was beyond your control and how it influenced the outcome, and recording adjustments to improve future decisions. Through repeated use, this framework becomes a dependable operating system for both thought and action. It trains you to anticipate challenges by recognizing patterns in past decisions, sharpening your ability to choose the right timing for interventions, and improving how you allocate resources such as time, energy, and attention. As your process strengthens, decision-making becomes less reactive and more intentional. You gain the ability to maintain composure in both routine and high-pressure environments, executing with confidence because each action is backed by preparation, principle, and structured reasoning. This consistency forms a stable foundation for long-term progress in any area of life, ensuring that you respond to events with deliberate control rather than impulse. Chapter 2. The role of clarity in strategic decisions. Clarity is the foundation of effective strategy, providing the structure needed to guide every decision with precision. When the objective is vague or undefined, decision-making becomes a process of guessing, increasing the likelihood of wasted effort and misaligned actions. The Stoics stressed that clarity is not an accidental state, but the result of deliberate effort to understand your own priorities, principles, and capabilities. Achieving it requires consistent self-examination, the removal of unnecessary mental clutter, and an honest review of personal motives. This process strengthens awareness of why you are taking a particular course of action and ensures that your energy is directed toward meaningful ends. Self-assessment is central to developing clarity. It involves identifying what you truly value, determining what you are willing to commit resources to, and recognizing where you have been acting out of habit rather than intention. The Stoics viewed this as an essential discipline because it helps prevent the mind from drifting toward reactive or trivial pursuits. Reflection should be regular and structured, allowing you to question assumptions, reassess priorities, and confirm that your current actions match your stated goals. This process also involves filtering out distractions that dilute focus, whether they come from external pressures or internal restlessness. Seneca taught that the mind should be directed to one purpose, emphasizing that concentrated effort leads to the most substantial results. A clearly defined objective acts as a guidepost, making it easier to identify which actions contribute to progress and which divert energy away from it. When goals are specific and understood, decision-making becomes more straightforward because every option can be measured against that central aim. Scattered attention dilutes energy, causing progress to slow or stall, while sustained focus allows each action to build on the last. This creates a continuous forward movement toward meaningful and measurable achievements. A focused mind also experiences less internal conflict, as choices are weighed against a consistent set of priorities rather than shifting impulses. To strengthen clarity and ensure decisions are grounded in purpose, it is essential to define outcomes before any action is taken. This process requires describing the intended result in precise, observable terms so that success can be recognized without confusion. The clearer the definition, the easier it becomes to assess whether a chosen action will bring you closer to that outcome. By establishing this standard in advance, you remove guesswork from the decision-making process and replace it with a framework that can be applied consistently. Once the desired outcome is set, each potential move should be evaluated through a simple filter. Does this action directly advance the stated goal? This method reduces wasted effort and keeps attention locked on actions with the highest return. It also helps identify when a task or opportunity, although appealing, does not meaningfully contribute to the larger objective. With repeated use, this evaluation process conditions the mind to maintain alignment between choices and core aims. The habit strengthens resilience against distractions and discourages deviations driven by short-term emotions or external pressures. Over repeated cycles of planning, acting, and reviewing, this structured approach becomes a reliable system for both immediate execution and sustained achievement. Each decision reinforces the link between purpose and action, creating a disciplined pattern that supports consistent progress toward the goals that matter most. The clarity gained from such a system not only sharpens strategic thinking, but also builds confidence in the ability to navigate challenges with precision and intention. Chapter 3: Anticipating Challenges and Obstacles. Strategic thinking is incomplete without the ability to anticipate challenges and prepare for them in a structured way. The Stoics refined this skill through a practice called premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of evils. This exercise involved consciously visualizing possible difficulties, setbacks, and disruptions before they occurred. By mentally rehearsing adversity, they reduced the emotional impact when such events arose in reality. This preparation strengthened their ability to respond with composure and effectiveness, even when circumstances turned unfavorable. The process was not meant to invite misfortune, but to remove its power to catch the mind unprepared. Strategic thinking is incomplete without the ability to anticipate challenges and prepare for them in a structured, deliberate way. The Stoics considered this a vital skill and developed it into a disciplined practice known as premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of evils. This exercise involved deliberately visualizing potential difficulties, obstacles, and disruptions before they occurred. By engaging the mind in advance, they lessened the emotional shock when such events took place and increased their capacity to respond with precision and calmness. This preparation was a conscious act of building resilience, designed to make the mind ready for the demands of reality rather than leaving it vulnerable to sudden change. In premeditatio malorum, the individual systematically considers both likely and unlikely disruptions. This includes disruptions to plans, resource shortages, conflicts with others, sudden losses, or environmental challenges. The Stoics would examine the nature of these possibilities, the likely signs that precede them, and the specific actions they would take in response. The aim was not to dwell on negativity, but to ensure the mind was equipped with pre-tested strategies, allowing for swift and rational action when necessary. When you anticipate potential setbacks, you create the opportunity to design contingency plans that are tailored to specific threats. These plans might involve alternative courses of action to achieve the same goal, reallocating resources to areas of greater urgency, or adjusting timelines to fit shifting conditions. Establishing these measures in advance means you can execute decisively rather than hesitating in uncertainty. By mentally rehearsing the process of encountering and overcoming obstacles, you also strengthen your ability to identify early warning signs, patterns, behaviors, or changes that signal a problem is developing, so you can intervene before the situation escalates. This method reduces the sense of being caught off guard and promotes a calm, problem-solving mindset. Effective strategic anticipation requires the exploration of a wide range of scenarios, from optimal outcomes to the most challenging conditions you can imagine. For each case, identify the factors that would require a response, decide the sequence of actions that would best address them, and prepare the necessary tools or resources in advance. This type of preparation increases agility, as you have already considered multiple paths forward and can shift between them without losing momentum. It also exposes weaknesses in your current strategies, revealing points where additional safeguards or redundancies may be necessary to protect your objectives. By making this a consistent practice, you establish a structured habit of readiness that becomes integrated into all aspects of decision-making. This readiness is built on deliberate preparation, clear evaluation of likely and unlikely events, and a methodical approach to developing responses. It reduces reliance on improvised solutions and replaces uncertainty with predetermined strategies. Because these strategies are tested through prior thought and, where possible, practical trials, they can be implemented with precision when required. This approach ensures that actions remain consistent with core principles, even under rapidly changing conditions. The ability to maintain alignment between principles and actions allows for both stability and adaptability, ensuring that adjustments made in the moment do not compromise long-term direction. Readiness developed in this way provides a clear operational framework. Each choice is supported by an understanding of its place within the broader plan, which allows for rapid decision-making without sacrificing quality. Even when circumstances present unexpected challenges, the prepared mind can adapt by selecting the most relevant plan from its existing set of responses. This capacity to adapt while preserving strategic alignment enables a balanced approach to both immediate demands and ongoing objectives. Strategic anticipation transforms uncertainty into a structured decision-making process. Instead of moving forward without guidance, you operate within a system that has been shaped through analysis, foresight, and careful consideration of potential scenarios. Plans developed in advance act as stabilizing anchors, allowing you to make informed adjustments rather than reactive changes. Mental rehearsal strengthens familiarity with possible situations, making it easier to identify the correct course of action when similar patterns emerge in reality. When combined with contingency planning and proactive scenario analysis, this approach forms a complete preparation model. Contingency planning ensures that if one path is blocked, another is ready for execution. Scenario analysis improves the ability to evaluate multiple possible developments and select the most effective response for each. Together, these tools provide both a defensive and offensive advantage, reducing the impact of setbacks while increasing the ability to exploit opportunities. This combination allows you to face adversity with measured confidence, act decisively under pressure, and keep long-term goals intact while responding effectively to immediate challenges. Chapter 4. Allocating resources with precision. Resources, whether time, energy, skills, or material possessions, must be allocated with precision to support a successful strategy. The Stoics viewed the careless use of resources as a form of neglect that weakened both personal discipline and the ability to achieve meaningful outcomes. They encouraged individuals to maintain constant awareness of what they possess and how it is being applied in daily life. This awareness is not limited to material goods, but extends to intangible resources such as attention, focus, and emotional capacity. Treating these as limited assets ensures that they are deployed in ways that strengthen purpose rather than scattered across low-value activities. Strategic thinking requires that resources be consistently directed toward the areas of greatest impact. This begins with a detailed assessment of which actions and commitments contribute directly to your primary goals and which fail to produce measurable results. By identifying activities that generate the highest returns in progress, growth, or stability, you can focus energy where it matters most. This also involves recognizing which commitments drain resources without providing proportional benefits, allowing for the removal or restructuring of those activities. Clear prioritization prevents dispersion of effort and maintains momentum toward the objectives that have lasting significance. A practical method for refining allocation is to track where time, energy, and attention are invested each day. This can be done through written logs, digital tracking tools, or simple end-of-day reviews. Recording this information reveals patterns that are often invisible without measurement, such as unnoticed distractions, repeated low-priority tasks, or energy spent on matters that do not align with long-term plans. Once these inefficiencies are identified, they can be addressed by setting boundaries, eliminating redundant commitments, or automating routine tasks. Every allocation decision should be assessed with a clear understanding of the return it generates in both short-term gains and long-term advantages. This assessment requires looking beyond immediate outcomes to evaluate how the choice contributes to lasting stability, growth, and capability. For example, dedicating hours to building a specialized skill may show little visible change at first, yet that skill can create significant opportunities, improve efficiency, or strengthen independence in the years ahead. Recognizing both the immediate and extended impact of a decision allows for a more accurate judgment of its true value. Applying this standard consistently forms the basis of disciplined resource management. It trains the mind to weigh every commitment, purchase, or use of time against its potential to advance meaningful goals. This habit prevents the gradual erosion of resources on low-impact activities and channels them into areas that create measurable progress. When the process is repeated across all areas of life, work, personal projects, relationships, and health, it produces a balanced distribution of energy and materials that aligns with purpose. To make this evaluation effective, it is useful to apply a set of guiding questions. Does this action or investment support the primary objectives I have defined? Will it strengthen my capacity to act effectively in the future? Does it generate a return that justifies the resources it requires? These questions filter out wasteful allocations and clarify where to concentrate effort. Over time, the habit of linking every choice to tangible value creates a clear connection between daily actions and long-term achievement. By ensuring that each unit of effort, attention, or material resource is used deliberately, you maintain control over the direction of your progress. This deliberate approach builds both efficiency and resilience, as fewer resources are lost to distractions or unproductive ventures. The result is a strategic foundation where resources are consistently aligned with objectives, making progress steady, sustainable, and rooted in careful planning. Chapter 5. Decision-making under pressure. The true test of strategy is most evident during high-pressure situations when the pace of events accelerates and the margin for error narrows. The Stoics understood that in these moments, emotional instability undermines judgment and reduces the ability to choose effectively. They practiced methods to remain steady under strain, cultivating habits that preserved clarity of thought regardless of external conditions. Panic, they observed, disrupts reasoning by shifting focus from the actual problem to the discomfort it creates. By maintaining composure, they preserved their capacity to assess the situation accurately and act in alignment with their objectives. In urgent conditions, an untrained mind tends to default to instinctive reactions. While instinct has value in certain scenarios, it often results in actions that address surface pressures without considering the larger implications. Such responses can overlook critical details or cause a chain of secondary problems that were not anticipated. The Stoics recognized this risk and trained themselves to apply a methodical approach even under stress. They practiced breaking large, complex challenges into smaller, well-defined components that could be addressed in sequence. This reduced cognitive overload, allowed for focused attention on each stage of the problem, and increased the likelihood of producing effective solutions. By progressing step by step, they maintained a structured flow of reasoning and avoided being immobilized by the weight of the overall situation. To strengthen this skill, they combined mental discipline with practical techniques. One of the most effective was introducing a deliberate pause before taking action, regardless of the intensity of the moment. This pause was not about unnecessary delay, but about creating a transition from an emotionally driven state to a state of calculated reasoning. In this moment, they would identify the immediate goal, isolate the most relevant facts, and determine which action best served the larger plan. This intentional pause ensured that decisions were informed by a clear understanding of priorities rather than the pressure of the moment. Even a pause of a few seconds can serve as a powerful filter, separating noise from useful information. It provides the mental space to check assumptions, verify alignment with objectives, and confirm that the chosen course of action fits the overall strategy. This method also reduces the influence of heightened emotion, which can distort judgment when left unchecked. Over repeated practice, the pause becomes an automatic stabilizing mechanism, activating whenever a decision must be made under duress. When combined with the discipline of breaking problems into smaller parts, this approach creates a decision-making process that is both resilient and adaptable. It enables a person to navigate shifting conditions without losing sight of long-term goals. Strategy remains intact because each decision is grounded in structure, reason, and carefully defined priorities. Whether facing minor disruptions or major crises, the result is a consistent ability to act decisively with clarity and purpose. Chapter 6. Adapting strategy to changing conditions. A sound strategy must be capable of adjusting to changing realities while keeping its central objective intact. The Stoics recognized that circumstances could shift rapidly due to external forces, unexpected events, or new information. They considered adaptability a skill that required active cultivation, built on the ability to refine methods without altering the underlying goal. This flexibility rests on a foundation of continuous awareness, developed through deliberate observation of both internal progress and external conditions. By closely tracking these factors, a person can identify signals that suggest adjustments are necessary before challenges escalate. Effective adaptation begins with early detection of change. This involves systematically monitoring performance indicators, environmental patterns, and potential risks that may influence outcomes. It also requires a clear understanding of priorities so that when change is detected, decisions about adjustment can be made with precision. When potential changes arise, the next step is to evaluate their potential impact on your objectives, the resources available, and the timing of planned actions. This evaluation should be measured and intentional, ensuring that any alteration supports the preservation of the strategic aim while enhancing the efficiency of the path toward it. One reliable method for building adaptability is scenario mapping. This process involves identifying a range of possible future developments, both advantageous and disadvantageous, and creating pre-planned responses for each. For favorable scenarios, determine how to maximize gains while keeping risk controlled. For unfavorable scenarios, outline measures to minimize damage, maintain stability, and keep progress toward the long-term goal. This preparation ensures that you have actionable strategies ready for different conditions. Practicing scenario mapping in advance develops familiarity with potential shifts, making the process of adaptation quicker and more confident when real changes occur. The mental rehearsal reduces hesitation, limits the emotional disruption of sudden events, and strengthens the ability to act from a prepared state rather than reacting impulsively. By integrating this practice into regular strategic planning, you build a framework where adaptation becomes a seamless extension of the strategy itself, preserving both direction and momentum in the face of uncertainty. Chapter 7. Building Decision Pathways. Decision pathways are structured, pre-established routes for managing recurring situations. They function as ready-made guides that allow for faster decisions without lowering the standard of reasoning or quality of outcomes. The Stoics valued this level of preparation because it eliminated unnecessary delays and uncertainty, enabling them to act quickly while maintaining alignment with their principles and long-term objectives. By reducing the need to reconsider the same type of situation repeatedly, decision pathways preserve both mental clarity and efficiency. To create decision pathways, begin by identifying situations that regularly arise in your personal, professional, or social environment. For each scenario, define the critical facts that must be gathered before any decision is made. These facts should be directly relevant to the outcome and allow for a clear assessment of the situation. Alongside this, identify the principles that must remain intact regardless of the pressure or urgency of the moment. Once principles are defined, list the viable options you could take, ranking them according to both effectiveness and alignment with your values. Recording this information in a written plan, digital document, or organized mental structure ensures that it is available for quick reference when needed. A written version can be especially useful for complex or high-stakes scenarios, as it prevents the loss of important considerations in stressful conditions. Reviewing these pathways periodically ensures they remain relevant as circumstances, priorities, or available resources change. By relying on decision pathways, you conserve mental energy that would otherwise be spent reconsidering solutions to problems you have already encountered. This conservation of effort allows for a greater reserve of focus and analytical capacity to be applied to new, unfamiliar, or complex challenges that require more thorough evaluation. The benefit extends beyond efficiency, as decision pathways also reinforce uniformity in the application of principles and standards. Each choice follows a consistent framework, ensuring that similar situations are handled in the same way, regardless of time constraints, stress levels, or emotional conditions. The uniformity provided by decision pathways also reduces the likelihood of errors caused by fluctuating judgment under pressure. When the process is predefined, there is less risk of overlooking critical factors or making inconsistent choices. This structure helps maintain a steady level of quality in decision-making, which is essential in high-stakes or time-sensitive environments. It also improves reliability, as others can predict and trust how decisions will be made in given circumstances, strengthening coordination in group or team contexts. With consistent application, decision pathways transition from a conscious reference tool into an instinctive response system. This transformation allows for immediate action without sacrificing strategic alignment, as the reasoning behind the choice has already been established and refined in advance. The decision-maker can act with both speed and accuracy, even when conditions are unpredictable or when the situation demands rapid execution. The combination of efficiency, consistency, and reliability makes decision pathways a foundational component of a disciplined strategic process, enabling high performance in both stable and high-pressure situations. Chapter 8. Strategic Patience. Strategic patience is the practice of waiting for the most favorable conditions before moving forward, using the waiting period as a time for deliberate preparation. It is an intentional process that combines ongoing observation, thorough readiness, and active refinement of plans. The Stoics considered this form of patience an essential safeguard against wasted effort, as it ensures that decisions are made when the likelihood of a successful outcome is at its highest. Applying strategic patience begins with clearly defining in advance the exact conditions that must be met before action is initiated. These conditions, or triggers, can include measurable events, specific changes in resource availability, or observable shifts in the environment. They serve as objective indicators that the time is right to proceed. Without predetermined criteria, decisions may be influenced by emotion or external pressure rather than a rational assessment of timing. During the waiting phase, the focus is on strengthening every element that will contribute to a successful execution. This includes building the necessary skills to handle both expected and unexpected developments, ensuring that all resources, whether financial, material, or human, are organized and ready for deployment, and gathering additional intelligence to expand understanding of the situation. The process also involves analyzing potential points of resistance that could interfere with progress, such as logistical constraints, opposing interests, or environmental factors, and determining how to neutralize or minimize them. The waiting period is used to refine the plan in detail, eliminating unnecessary steps, closing vulnerabilities, and confirming that every action within the sequence contributes directly to the intended outcome. This deliberate preparation increases the likelihood that once the decision is put into motion, it can proceed without interruption or the need for hasty corrections. Strategic patience functions as a controlled safeguard that limits the possibility of unnecessary setbacks by ensuring that actions begin only when conditions are most favorable. It acts as a filter, removing choices that are shaped by incomplete understanding, emotional pressure, or premature urgency. This method of delaying action until all essential elements are in place ensures that decisions are grounded in accurate information, adequate preparation, and a framework capable of supporting stability throughout execution. When this process is followed, each step of implementation is supported by deliberate forethought rather than improvised adjustments. The process relies on establishing precise triggers that define the correct moment to proceed. These triggers serve as objective signals rather than subjective impressions. They can include observable market changes, the finalization of critical agreements, environmental or logistical shifts that create advantageous conditions, or the completion of foundational tasks that the strategy depends on. By defining these markers in advance, you remove uncertainty around timing and ensure that forward movement is supported by conditions that have been deliberately selected to aid success. Acting only when the identified triggers occur allows resources, personnel, and operational steps to be fully prepared and synchronized. This alignment ensures that every part of the plan moves in harmony, minimizing inefficiencies and reducing the likelihood of wasted effort. It also increases the capacity to respond to challenges quickly, since preparation has been built into the waiting period. The result is an action that begins from a strong and stable position, supported by optimal timing, ready assets, and a clearly mapped sequence of execution designed to deliver maximum impact with minimal unnecessary risk. Chapter 9. Leveraging strengths and covering weaknesses. A well-designed strategy applies strengths in a way that maximizes their impact while ensuring weaknesses are managed so they do not undermine progress. The Stoics emphasized the value of clear, honest self-assessment in identifying both. Strengths include the skills you perform with consistency, the habits that support discipline, and the resources, whether material, intellectual, or relational, that you can depend on to achieve reliable results. Weaknesses are the areas where output is inconsistent, capacity is limited, or vulnerability to disruption is high. Recognizing both sides gives you a complete picture of your operational capacity. To leverage strengths effectively, build your strategy so that your most reliable capabilities form the foundation of execution. This means structuring projects and objectives in a way that centers on these core abilities. Assign primary responsibilities in line with the skills and resources you control best, ensuring that the most critical tasks are carried out by those most capable of executing them efficiently. When strengths are placed at the center of the process, the likelihood of consistent performance increases, and the overall plan gains stability. Addressing weaknesses requires intentional safeguards. This can involve implementing contingency measures that activate if a known limitation becomes a problem, collaborating with individuals whose strengths complement your weaker areas, or modifying processes to reduce the chances of those weaknesses creating delays or errors. These adjustments act as protective barriers, allowing the plan to continue even if a vulnerability is exposed. Regular performance reviews are a critical component for maintaining and improving the balance between strengths and weaknesses in any strategy. These reviews should be carried out after each major initiative, project phase, or significant decision-making period. The first step is to evaluate the role that strengths played in achieving the desired results. Identify which skills, resources, or processes contributed most directly to success, and determine how these can be applied more broadly in future work. This reinforces the elements that deliver consistent, high-quality outcomes. At the same time, examine how weaknesses influenced performance. Determine whether they caused delays, reduced efficiency, created avoidable risks, or required corrective measures during execution. Understanding the specific points where vulnerabilities affected progress makes it easier to design targeted improvements. These improvements can include skill development, acquiring additional resources, or integrating specialized support to cover gaps. If weaknesses cannot be fully eliminated, processes can be modified to reduce exposure to situations where they have the greatest potential impact. Redistributing responsibilities is another effective outcome of these reviews. Assigning tasks according to the natural strengths of team members or available resources ensures that key objectives are handled by those best equipped to manage them. Where weaknesses remain unavoidable, the introduction of support systems, such as checklists, monitoring tools, or secondary oversight, can provide safeguards that maintain quality and consistency. When the process of review and adjustment is applied on a consistent basis, the strategy develops greater precision and structural stability. Each cycle of execution provides measurable results and concrete observations that become input for the next phase of planning. By examining these outcomes in detail, you identify which strengths consistently produce value and determine how to expand their use in future actions. This systematic reinforcement ensures that effective practices become deeply embedded in the strategic framework. At the same time, recurring weaknesses are addressed with specific corrective measures. This may involve retraining, reallocating resources, or redesigning workflows to reduce the likelihood that these weaknesses will interfere with progress. Over successive cycles, the influence of these vulnerabilities decreases as they are either mitigated or integrated into the plan, with safeguards that prevent them from causing significant disruption. This continuous improvement process allows the strategy to adapt naturally to new challenges and conditions without losing its core purpose. As the framework becomes more refined, efficiency increases because decisions are based on accumulated experience and tested solutions. Adaptability also grows, as prior adjustments provide a library of proven responses to varied scenarios. Resilience is strengthened through repeated validation of processes under different circumstances, building confidence in the ability to maintain performance standards even during instability. The result is a plan that is both robust and flexible, supported by a cycle of analysis, refinement, and application that aligns with long-term objectives while remaining responsive to immediate demands. This approach ensures that strategic execution maintains a high level of consistency and reliability across a range of conditions. Chapter 10: Sustaining Strategic Discipline. Sustaining strategic discipline involves the continuous application of clarity, anticipation, and adaptability in every phase of planning and execution. It is a deliberate process that requires regular attention to how decisions are made, how outcomes are achieved, and whether methods remain suited to both present demands and long-term objectives. The Stoics taught that proficiency in any discipline comes from consistent and intentional practice, and strategic thinking follows this same principle. Discipline is strengthened through the repetition of effective habits, the steady refinement of processes, and the evaluation of results against a clearly defined standard. One of the most reliable ways to maintain this discipline is through scheduled strategic reviews. These reviews should take place at predetermined intervals, such as weekly, monthly, or quarterly, depending on the pace and scale of your objectives. The process begins with a detailed review of actions taken, measuring each against the intended goals to determine their effectiveness. This includes assessing whether the decision-making process adhered to your core principles, identifying successes that can be replicated, and pinpointing areas where performance fell short. These reviews are not only about correction, but also about reinforcing what works, ensuring that strong practices remain central to the strategy. Strategic reviews require the ongoing identification of adjustments that keep plans relevant as external conditions, internal resources, and priorities change. These adjustments may include altering deadlines to match realistic progress rates, shifting resources to areas of greater impact, incorporating new methods or tools that improve efficiency, or rearranging the order of planned actions to match emerging opportunities or constraints. Each adjustment should be measured against its ability to support the original strategic aim while improving the execution process. By making these changes at set intervals, you ensure that your strategy remains practical and aligned with current realities, reducing the risk of drifting away from the objectives you set at the outset. Conducting these reviews on a consistent schedule creates a rhythm that sharpens decision-making skills. Each evaluation reinforces the habit of linking actions to objectives, filtering out activities that do not contribute directly to progress, and ensuring that all efforts serve a clear purpose. This regular assessment builds a culture of accountability, where each step taken is examined for its effectiveness and alignment with guiding principles. It also improves foresight, as patterns from previous reviews reveal trends that can be anticipated and managed before they create problems. The discipline developed through this process is built through small, deliberate actions that are applied consistently and with clear intention. Each strategic review becomes a focused opportunity to reinforce the methods and practices that have proven effective, ensuring that they remain central to execution. It also serves as a structured moment to identify inefficiencies, remove unnecessary steps, and streamline processes so that effort is concentrated on activities with the greatest impact. By making targeted adjustments, you align both daily actions and broader plans with the current requirements of your objectives. These reviews provide the structure needed to fine-tune a strategy with accuracy, ensuring that both immediate operational demands and long-term objectives are addressed. Immediate priorities often include removing barriers that slow progress, such as operational bottlenecks, process inefficiencies, or gaps in communication between different elements of the plan. They may also involve reallocating resources toward urgent tasks that require immediate attention to keep momentum intact. Long-term ambitions can involve expanding organizational or personal capabilities, securing the tools, skills, or relationships that will be necessary in the future, and creating systems that can sustain and support progress for extended durations. By addressing both immediate and long-term needs within the same review process, you create a balance that maintains current performance without sacrificing future growth. When reviews are conducted regularly and with discipline, each cycle of evaluation and refinement builds a framework that combines both reliability and flexibility. Reliability is achieved by consistently applying the same core principles and values to guide every decision, ensuring that the overall direction remains steady regardless of external pressures. Flexibility is developed by continuously adjusting methods, workflows, and priorities in response to shifting conditions or emerging information. This dual quality allows the strategy to remain effective across a wide range of circumstances. A system developed through this method maintains its trajectory during uncertain conditions by being anchored to clearly defined priorities and a purpose that is fully understood by those responsible for its execution. These priorities act as fixed reference points, ensuring that decisions remain aligned with the central objectives even when external pressures create instability. A shared understanding of purpose across all involved parties strengthens coordination and minimizes confusion, allowing actions to be guided by a unified vision rather than scattered individual interpretations. Alongside this stability, the system retains the flexibility to adjust course when circumstances change, whether that involves capitalizing on new opportunities or responding to unexpected barriers. This flexibility is built into the framework through processes that allow for reassessment, reallocation of resources, and timely modifications to operational plans. When opportunities arise, the system can shift quickly to take advantage of them without compromising long-term goals. When obstacles appear, the same adaptability allows for prompt adjustments that preserve momentum and reduce the risk of prolonged disruption. This dual capacity, anchored stability combined with controlled adaptability, ensures that action can be initiated without unnecessary delay, carried out with precision, and supported by detailed preparation. Each movement within the system is the product of both readiness and alignment with the larger strategic vision. Whether the conditions are steady or volatile, the framework ensures that progress is maintained. It allows for decisive execution under favorable conditions and resilient problem-solving during difficult ones, creating a balanced approach that keeps objectives within reach while managing change with confidence and clarity.